Well, hello, Trilogy members. It's great to see you all today. Thank you for joining us. This is Saturday, August the 19th. If you can believe that, the year is flying quickly. That's for sure. I want to thank all of you. Probably some of you on the line today just took a couple of minutes a few weeks ago to take a survey for us to really help guide the content for next year's keynote speaker series. So thank you if you were one of those who took the time to share your feedback. We really appreciate it. Secondly, on my list that I always talk about is that this session is being recorded. So if you have friends or family that you would like to share this with later, we normally will post it the following week on MTL. And we will be sure and point that out to everybody, and we'll also put it in your daily announcement blocks. And then I also have about 6 people that have emailed me this morning saying that they aren't able to attend, so I've got them covered as well. And don't forget, during the presentation, I'm going to go offline, but there is a bank of individuals that are ready to assist you when you put in your questions in the chat feature, so that then we can direct those off to Dr. Landry. But without further ado today, Dr. Landry, we're talking about stress, health, and resilience.
We are indeed, Sarah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Appreciate this opportunity always. And hello to everyone out there. I hope you're all cool, at least those in the Southwest, which I think are a good many of you. And I think you've become probably very adept at staying cool. So good on you. So today, as Sarah said, we're going to be continuing our theme of 2023, which is the how of healthy longevity. And beginning of the year, we talked about the why, and then we had a presentation, sort of an overview on lifestyle tips. And then last time we began a 4-part series on resilience, because as I'll be saying, resilience is key to healthy longevity. It's key to nearly everything we do. And again, we were all reminded of that during the COVID episode. So again, the last presentation was sort of an overview of resilience, and today we're going to drill down a bit. And but the last time we defined resilience, and that is, of course, as you can read, engineering has one. But for us, it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, and it's a toughness, and it's also the capacity to avoid or minimize the effect of disease and injury or any challenge that comes down the road. And we're reminded that successful aging, healthy aging is the dotted line here instead of the decline that we see in most of the population with chronic disease. We're talking about wanting to stay at our very best, where this dotted line is, even when the dip comes, like something like COVID, that we're able to bounce back. And that is really all about resilience, bouncing back. And so that's kind of an overview of what we did. And we also talked about the 7 characteristics of resilient people from the literature. And today we're really going to deal with stress, but in so doing, we're going to be looking at a couple of these, particularly mindfulness. In how we deal with stress and therefore maintain and build our resilience. Because the fact is that stress is seriously diminished when we're stressed. There's many reasons for that, and we'll be talking about that, but it really boils down to our immune system. But it also is a cardiovascular load to be under chronic stress. Again, more to come. You know what? I was just thinking that a lot of what I'm going to say today is really covered by the Serenity Prayer, which I'm sure you all know. But let me repeat it. It says, Lord, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. Big, really big. Courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, today I'll be so bold as to say I'll help the Lord a little bit in this prayer to help you learn to accept the things that you cannot change, and I hopefully give you a lot of wisdom to know the difference. That's my goal. It's funny how some of the truths were laid down many, many years or even eons again. You think of the golden rule and things. So a lot of wisdom there. But today I'd like to add a little bit to that. So this is stress resilience and healthy longevity. This is part 2 in a 4-part series on resilience. Our next one will deal with mindset, and the last one will deal with emotional intelligence. And so these three are really drilling down on this thing, stress. We live in a time where the pace of life, the time urgency that we have, the focus on production and being productive, and information overload, it is a huge sort of uh, milieu of that produces stress. And we've become accustomed to it, and many people think that it's normal, and we're going to address that. But it's a major threat, as I said, to our quality of life for sure, and for our health and longevity. And so today, I'm hoping to be able to give you an idea of drilling down on stress, where it comes from, what is it really, and some very, very, very practical tips in order to deal with it. Like fitness, you can get all sorts of very new, sophisticated things, but when it really comes down to it, dealing with stress is a core function of our humanity. However, it's new. That's the problem. And because for 90% of the time, or actually 99% of the time, humans lived in a totally different environment. And they did have stress, but it's a particular type of stress that we only rarely see, whereas what we're facing every day, seemingly all the time, is something they never did. And so we did not inherit the ability to deal with the kind of stress that we have to deal with today. We're learning it, but it takes a long time to adjust to things. So we're still of the ilk of our hunter-gatherer ancestors. I've said that before relative to many of the things that we need to age in a better way. And so some people say, is it that stress is normal? Well, it depends upon what you're really talking about with stress. If indeed you're talking about the kind of stress that the physiologists talk about, and that has to do with a survival type of thing, or we're dealing with the stress that we talk about every day. I'm so stressed, and I live a stressful life. It's a stressful world. That's a little different. And here comes some of the wisdom that as we address this, this is a major part of understanding stress and understanding the things that you can change and the things that you cannot change. So this kind of stress, you're walking down a path, our ancestor walking down the path, and this all of a sudden starts to come at you. That is a stress response. And so in response to that, our body goes into jump mode. It is survival, and it is a fight or flight response. And to fight or flee the very best we can, the fastest we can, or fight with this in the strongest possible way. All of these things happen. This is an alarm. It is like all hands on deck for this type of stress. And as it should be. And we would not be here today. Our species wouldn't survive had we not had this particular able to respond. And there are many mammals that have that, many even non-mammals that have this kind of stress alarm. It's a survival mechanism, but it's really meant to be short-term, and it's meant to propel us to do something. So fight or flee. And so remember that it should be short term, because our bodies cannot sustain all of these things happening in this alarm stage. It's like being at your very best 24 hours a day. It's even worse than that, because we're not meant to be this way, because it's again meant to be short term. And we have this magnificent brain. And up there in the frontal lobe, we very quickly see the danger. We don't think about it. You don't think about jumping out of the way of a truck. You don't thinking about maybe running indoors if you don't like lightning. That is something like we just do. And that is what our ancestors did when they ran into that lion. It's not really thinking about it. And so all of this magnificent brain we have sort of detects the danger, and then it goes into this limbic system, which is the middle part of the brain, and that is all automatic. Everything is automatic there. That it sends out signals and neurotransmitters and cortisol and epinephrine and all of the things that we need to have that alarm reaction that I showed you happen. Again, it's automatic. The problem is this brain, this blessing we have of a brain, is also in many ways a curse because we as humans, and I think we're the only ones, who knows, but I believe we're the only ones, they're the only mammals and higher level brain that is able to, with thoughts, present something as if it's real. So to present a stressful situation as if it's real, as if it's life-threatening, which sends us into an alarm mode, and therefore, to the extent that we're stressed all day, and many of us are, we're in that alarm system all day, and that is not a healthy thing to be. And now, we're not exactly where you'd be running from a lion, but all of our systems are in that, our pulse is up, our blood pressure is up. So our cardiovascular system is there. Our muscles are tight. We kind of shut down our GI system a bit so that we can have GI problems. Our immune system is ultimately lowered and declined and is not as capable of managing other things that may happen. So chronic stress, chronic survival mode is not a healthy thing. And unfortunately, with our way of life, this is what we see. But remember, it is our chattering mind, this great brain, blessing and a curse. The curse part is that when we start thinking all day long, our to-do list, the world, politics, my brother-in-law, my crazy uncle, traffic, finances. As we do that all day, and you know what? We have 60,000 thoughts a day, up to 60,000 thoughts a day. I don't know how anyone counted that, but they did. It's in the literature. And over 80% of those are negative thoughts, and most of them are repetitive. So these thoughts are not valuable in the sense of solving problems and world peace and that sort of thing. This is just about creating stress for us because really there's nothing we can do about it. And yet we carry all that around like on a backpack. And this chattering mind that we have, thinking about all these things, causes us to go into the alarm system. So that is not normal. It is probably normal in that it happens to most of us all day long in this society, but not normal in the sense of that's how our physiology should be happening. And again, it's very dangerous and it causes risk. And we're talking up to over $100 billion in healthcare costs and sickness and things all related to this sort of thing, stress. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, it may make you angry, but most, if not all, stress is self-induced. Exactly. Self-induced. We're not running from lions. We're not jumping out of the way of a truck, occasionally a truck, but it very rarely are we in that survival mode for stress response. Most of it is our thoughts stressing us, the world stressing us. Just hold that now. Don't push back on me yet. Listen to the rest of what I have to say in this presentation, and then I think perhaps you will then understand. That's a very important part of what I'm delivering today in the way of wisdom. Our brain can do that. And because our brain can do that, this great brain can also intervene and not let that happen. So that's the good news. So again, our brains work against us in this way when we have constant stress. But what we're going to talk about are things that we can do with that higher level brain in order to not live with this stressful response so much. So back to there's Sapolsky here. Great. He's an expert on stress. And he wrote this book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. So a zebra attacked by a lion will have a stress response. Run fast, zigzag, do whatever it needs to do in order to get away. If it gets away, within minutes, and he goes to Africa and observes this, within minutes, they're grazing as if nothing happened. All right, so what would we humans do? Say someone tries to mug us or attack us or something like that. We're not going to get over that. We're going to mull that over. That is going to be in our head. We're going to have that in our backpack, perhaps for the rest of our lives, creating anxiety, fear in certain situations. But that's how we roll with this brain of ours. And again, that is what is basically rotting us from within, causing so much of disease, lower quality of life, poor relations.
Hey, Roger. I'm not sure. I can't hear you anymore. Something just changed.
Sorry, how's that? How much did we miss, Kai?
Just 15 seconds, 10 seconds.
Okay. So the point is that we're meant to do something, and we just generate these with our thoughts, and then we do nothing because honestly, there's nothing to do. And if you really thought about it rationally, why am I thinking constantly about the world and the state of the world, when in reality there's relatively little I can do. Whatever I can do, you should do, and we'll talk about that. But to just worry about it, that's so destructive. And we have become to think that this is a normal situation. So think of it as brain on, brain off. So brain off is the automatic response that's supposed to be short term in order to respond, like these golfers. In order to get golfers off a green, something really serious has to be happening. And there they are. If you can see there between the two on the left. So they're responding. This is a life-threatening situation. They are appropriately doing it. They're not sitting there, oh, look at that. That's a bear. I think that I should run. No, this is automatic. This is time to respond. And this will be short term. However, these humans, they'll be talking about it a long time, but unlike the zebra. But then, so think of that as mind off. That is normal. That is normal. However, mind on, so our thoughts, our chattering mind, just generating the kind of stress that we're dealing with our thoughts. That's mind on, and that is the very, very destructive type. That continues, and there's nothing for us to do about it. Great quote from the ancient Greeks. They had this problem also. Men are disturbed by things, not by things, but by the view which they take of it. So how we interpret something, the thoughts that we have about it, that is what is really disturbing for us. So there we are, all of us, every day, we have multiple things that are stressful situations. And you say, how can my stress be self-induced? It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges in our life, but how we respond to it is the stress. So you get a flat tire. I mean, what do? You change the tire, you call AAA if you have it, and hopefully you do, and you address the situation. If, however, you sit there and you rail against the tire gods and you talk about it and then have a fear of the flat tires in the future because you haven't done anything about it, well, that's a different kind of stress, and that's the destructive type. So that's us. We have so many things out there. It's how we respond, or in addition to how we respond, it is how we seek relief from this chattering mind, because we need the relief. And, we've all been talking about kaizen and small steps to health. And so this is a huge problem for all of us. Look, I'm no guru. I suffer just as you do. But I look for relief, and we'll be talking about that. But anything to break the chattering mind sort of loop, because as you know, if you continue that, it tends to extrapolate, tends to logarithmically increase to a point where you almost cannot get away from it. And so it is a matter of understanding strategies so that we don't carry things around in a backpack, and also how we get relief from that stress. Another quote, Mark Twain, I love. So I've had many worries in my life, most of which never happened. Now we can all say that, can't we? I challenge you to think about something that was really bothering you 2 or 3 months ago, and all of a sudden it's not. It's probably something that you were worried about happening and it did not happen, or it wasn't as bad. And so, it's okay. We all do it. It's just the nature. This whole thing is related to mental health, and actually, because it is so disturbing, creates anxiety disorders, creates significant mental health problems and behavioral problems, and it falls into the category of a cognitive behavior theory, the attempt to treat it. Cognitive behavior theory. So here's how it goes. We have thoughts, we have emotions, we have behaviors, and thoughts can drive our emotions. And we'll be talking about this in the 2 talks from now when we talk about emotional intelligence. And so we'll be getting more into it. But our thoughts can drive our behavior. And our behavior then, our emotions, and our emotions can drive our behavior. And the good news is that our behavior can help our thoughts, can do something about our thoughts and our emotions. So again, that higher brain we have, we can deal with this if we allow it. If we just let it be automatically plaguing us, it's not going to happen. There's some more wisdom from someone we all know, the 800-year-old gentleman, and fear is the pathway to the dark side. And really, what stress is, the emotion that it drives, is mostly fear. And when we're fearful, there's a particular fear center in our brain called the amygdala. And it's responsible for causing this whole stress related response, the negative one. And it is stimulated by our thoughts, just as it would be stimulated by a lion. And so again, wisdom, pathway to the dark side. So we've seen what stress does in a healthy way for us to respond to a survival attack, to a survival response, to an immediate response. But it also affects us when our thoughts drive the stress that we're dealing with, that chattering mind. So very, very significant effects, and you can see. And there's another one that I had mentioned earlier, but that's not on here. We know now that stress significantly depresses our immune system. And I think we all know what that will do for us. That makes us more susceptible to just about everything, including cancer, but certainly diseases like COVID. And it has significant levels of stress we can see in the brain. There's mental health and issues. There's cardiovascular issues, digestive issues, and so this affects everything, because again, a stress response was meant to be all hands on deck to respond, to survive, and then it's over. But again, the stress that we're under is chronic. It just keeps eating at us. So this model that I showed you before, it shows us that, again, that thoughts can cause this all to happen, but therein lies the optimism in this message, that our thoughts and our brains and the wisdom that we can get from learning and from example and from what we're doing today are practical strategies in order to deal with this, to intervene. So this is not automatic. You'll see when I talk about emotional intelligence, those who have very low emotional intelligence get swept away with their emotions. They have a thought or something happens, they go to emotion, and there's no stopping them. That behavior will happen, and it's most likely an inappropriate behavior. But emotional intelligence is the ability to intervene so that doesn't happen. But it's the same with stress. So a thought can drive an emotion and then set off this whole physiologic response. And if we don't intervene, again, we're beating ourselves up. It's almost like internally, it's like stepping on the gas of a car and the brake at the same time. That's our bodies. That's under stress. So it's how we look at things, isn't it? We've seen this slide before, and how we interpret things. If indeed we have all these stressful situations in our life and we don't intervene with some of the practical strategies we're going to be talking about today, very easy to do, very easy. No money, no cost, very easy as long as we understand what's happening, that we're the cause of most of our stress. And if we don't carry things around on our back, all these things that are stressful situations that are out there, they will beat us down. They will bend us over, and they will bring us to our knees. And they will make it less likely that we're going to be healthy in older adulthood, or that we'll even make older adulthood. And we're talking about all the things that we consider to be normal diseases, bone diseases, cancer, heart disease, dementia even. Dementia, the rate of dementia is much, much higher in someone who is under chronic stress. No system is left untouched. So I'd like to, as always, I want to be able to not just sort of ring the alarm about what's happening, but also give you some practical tips. Now, I know many of you are aware of things. Many of you meditate now or have meditated. Many of you have done stress management classes, and we learn things. But, what I want to do here is show you things and give you strategies that are so easy. All it takes is attention, and that attention to what's happening within each one of us, what's happening to me now. And like right now, I'm giving a talk. I have adrenaline running because I don't want to muff up. I want Sarah to be happy. I want you to get the information. So I'm kind of tuned up. But if I were this way all day, that would be very destructive. And so, in fact, you probably have experienced it, that when you've had a stressful situation, you've had this burst of cortisol and epinephrine, you get very tired after. And that is sort of the body responding to that and calling for you now to rest, to recover from this hyper alert state that you've been in. So let's talk about these strategies. So first of all, this one doesn't work. This is not one of my strategies. And however, even not literally, but metaphorically, that's what many of us do. We keep the thought or the stress thought, the finances or the world in our heads, and we just keep thinking about it. And maybe it goes away a minute and then comes back. And remember, 60,000 thoughts today, most negative and most repetitive. And so this is not the way to stress reduction. Great book, The Power of Now. This deals in many, many things, but it really does deal in the whole issue of the stress that we all feel every day in our society today, how we are not geared up for it, how it is very destructive to not only to our bodies and our health, but also to relationships, how it relates it to many of the world wars that were out there, what were some of these things that we're talking about. If you can't get rid of a negative thought, say against another group or another country, and you're a leader, that may very well drive you to a war or some serious offense that will cause more difficulties in the world. So Eckhart Tolle says there are stressful situations, and he totally agrees that all of our stress is self-induced. All but, say, that truck bearing down on you. And so there's only three things to do when you're faced with a stressful situation: fix it or make a plan to fix it. Say that the tire situation, okay, fix the tire, and to avoid stress worrying about flat tires, be a member in AAA or have some way to get help, or make sure that you know how to change a flat and you have a spare tire that's healthy. And then if you have that, then you don't worry about it anymore. But you either fix it or you make a plan to fix it. That's doing something. Remember? You have to, it is supposed to be short term, your stress, and cause you to do something. A lot of what we struggle with, I've spoken before, it's really not for us to solve. It's to walk away from it. This is not my problem. There's nothing I can do, and I'm not going to carry it around on my backpack. If it is related, if it's something that can happen to me, I'll have a plan, or I will fix it. And then you walk away. And then the third one is probably what most of us have to do about our problems, our stressful situations, and that is to accept it. The serenity prayer, right? And that's where serenity comes from. Serenity, lack of stress, from accepting what you cannot change. And if you can change it, make the plan. Start to fix it. And then you don't carry it around because you're doing something and you're addressing it. So this makes sense. When you read it, it makes great sense. But sometimes, well, not sometimes, nearly always, it's easy to forget when you're presented with stressful situations. So remember, this is wisdom of the ages. Stressful situation, fix it, or make a plan, walk away, or accept it. Pretty simple. I have asked you as an audience, and when I was in person in over there in Phoenix, and I do it frequently with audiences, is I ask artists what happens to time when they're doing their art, and they say time goes away. Well, when we don't have a sense of time, we're not stressed. That's why our hunter-gatherer ancestors, I mean, they had no watches or anything. It was sunrise, sunset. It was the seasons. There's really no sense of time because think about how time drives us. I'm late. I'm early. What time is it? When is that due? Calendar time. And that just significantly stresses us. And so, but you get lost. The artist will say, I have no sense of time. And I ask them how they feel, and they say, well, I feel serene. I feel happy. I feel joyful. And you can get, therefore, lost in a task. What that does, not only is it pleasurable, I personally experienced this with art and during COVID, and it not only lets you not be bothered, but it resets your stress clock, so to speak, the things that you're wrestling with. And so, as a minimum, it just shuts things down for even a few minutes, and that reboots the whole situation. Because again, it grows logarithmically, the stress that we feel. If we don't get relief at all, and those poor people who can't even sleep because they're stressed, that is a significant threat to their health and welfare. So anything, but art, woodwork, knitting, and writing, and anything like that, and you do indeed get a reboot, and you feel refreshed. Those of you who are artists, I know that in particular is something that, some people do very hazardous things like rock climbing, bungee jumping, because this happens. Time goes away and you are totally focused on the present. Again, you're not in some sort of altered state. You're just hyper focused on what you're doing, hyper focused on the present. Because with daring situations like that, you have to be. But with art, it happens because you become lost and time is not a factor. This is something easy to say, a little more difficult to do. Most of us today, honestly, we don't say it, but basically we believe that we are our minds. Because the mind is always going, as I said, 60,000 thoughts. It seems to drive everything. But the fact is, the mind is just a resource we have, a skill and talent. And when we use it to solve a problem, it's magnificent. When it happens, that, as I said, when it's the cursed part of our brains where these thoughts are totally driving us, that's something else. But what happens is we think we are our brains, and we are totally lost. We are being in our thoughts. We're buried in our thoughts. We don't. It becomes our reality. The thought is the reality, and if it's something we're worried about, that reality is driving our system. The ability to step back and observe your thoughts is paramount. It is gold for us and our health. What am I talking about? So I'm really worried, say, about finances, and I'm there. I said, I don't know if I'm going to get enough. Then we'll get this, and look through the checkbook and look through the bank accounts, and if I can say, wait, what are you doing right now? You are obsessed with financial ideas. You're obsessed with financial thoughts. It is making you very nervous. It is making you hyper alert. Not many of us can do that, but the ability to do that, to step back and observe what is happening there, that is huge. This is something you need to practice, and like with Kaizen, which we said, small steps, it's probably necessary. So it is at least once, for you could set your alarm sometime, and some people do this, and at least once an hour or whatever, they say, okay, what am I thinking about right now, or what's the status of my body? Is it hyper alert? I mean, and just observe yourself. Maybe it sounds weird, but I'm telling you, it's not being schizophrenic either. It is the ability to step out and observe, particularly what your mind and thoughts are doing. That immediately stops the thoughts controlling you and controlling our stress response and controlling our cortisol and our epinephrine and our blood pressure and our pulse and everything else. So practice this at any moment in time. Just sort of step back, and I'll talk about it in a different way in the slides to come. It's some mundane task. You do this with meditation, and meditation is fantastic. And I hope some of you do it, and I hope some of you are willing to try it. I'll talk about it briefly, but many people are afraid of that. And this is about just observing. I am walking up the stairs now. That's what I'm doing. I feel the muscles in my legs, and I feel my whole body. And when you're doing that, you're not thinking about this. The chattering mind is stopped. You are focused on present moment. You're in the present moment. And we all know, we've all heard that that's magical. And it shouldn't be magical, meaning that it's difficult to get. Presence is easy to get only when we pay attention and when we focus and realize runaway thoughts can control us. So wherever you are, be there. How often does that happen, really, in our life now? For the artist, it does happen. But, have you ever gotten in a car, maybe driven 5 to 10 miles, and really not remember anything that you saw? Certainly you were safe. It was automatic. You avoided things. But you didn't really observe things. You didn't observe that tree was blossoming. You didn't observe the little child on the swing in the playground. You didn't observe things. You were just going, and your thoughts were going. Your to-do list was what was on your mind, or you had to get there on time, and if you don't get there on time, what will happen? What will they think? And that, again, we're all victims of it. So these are the strategies, some of them, and I'm going to go through each one of these. So to practice wherever you are, being there, you can observe your breathing, and so that is being anywhere. And this is the basis for meditation and beginning meditation, because breathing is something we all do. And breathing is something that is, when we observe our breath, we calm ourselves down. The vagus nerve is stimulated, and we calm ourselves down just observing our breathing. Again, this is the basis of meditation, the beginning of meditation. But just observing your breath, not even calling it meditation, is something that is going to be very valuable, in that it will allow you to reboot. It'll allow you to observe what's happening to you, and where are your thoughts right now. And if you do meditate and you didn't begin to observe your breathing, you'll notice that if you're just starting the first time doing this, within seconds, a thought will come in and start to try to take over. Don't worry about it. That's what happens. Just go right back and start to observe. I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Then the thought comes in, and just say, okay, that's all right. That's all right. Just go back. So be gentle with yourself, because if you're hard on yourself, and part of meditation is awareness without thought or judgment. So if you're judging yourself, I'm not doing it right, I'm not breathing, I can't do this, that sort of thing, then you've lost any value that comes with this. So this is something that you can do anytime, and you may have to schedule it at first. It may have to be a little artificial, as I said, setting your alarm on your wristwatch or anywhere, and at a certain time every couple hours, or a certain time during the day, like when you're eating breakfast or when you're going to bed, that sort of thing. Doing a body scan is very similar to observing your breathing, except now it is about your entire body, and it's about, what is happening in my body. You start to focus on your feet, and what do they feel like? Are they comfortable? Do they hurt? Are they swollen? And don't judge. And your muscles and each part of your body, because as you do that, you are very present, and this chat and your thoughts are no longer taking over. And so this is called a body scan, and of course you'll be able to get this presentation, and so the instructions for it. But don't let the instructions get carried away. All you do is think about a region of your body. We had the breath before, and so to think about an area that maybe is painful, a joint or something, and focus on that, not in a judgmental way. I wish I didn't have that, I have to get this fixed. It's just that I'm feeling pain. And do you know what? This, in fact, is responsible, and the research is very clear on this, for less a lower rating for the severity of the pain. When we don't fight it, and when we judge what's going to happen, is this the rest of my life? I can't do that. I won't be able to do things. I'm going to have this pain, or I need meds. That when we focus, this is pain, and you're present with that pain, that it actually becomes less severe. And people who do that need less pain medication. It's remarkable. It seems counterintuitive, but it is not. It's a noisy world, and that makes for a lot of stress. But if you can get in an environment like this, to really listen, I mean, bird watchers are out there listening for bird calls, but are we? What we think that places are totally quiet, and yet when we really listen, there's the wind through the trees, bird calls, perhaps animals, maybe a distant sound that's man-made, but you hear it, and while you're doing that, you are focused on that particular sound, and doing that is allows you to be in the present moment, and for a moment reboot from your troubling thoughts. Slow down. We take schedule. You may have to schedule a time. Slow down. The Italians have a saying, dolce fa niente, and that is the sweetness of doing nothing. Sweetness of doing nothing. We don't allow ourselves to do that, at least not when we're younger. And sometimes, because we've done it our entire lives, we can't do it when we're older. And because we're a production-oriented society and a time-based society, schedule some time to just slow down. It can be just minutes. Certainly a walk in nature would be a great way to do it, but not trying to make time or burn calories, just be. And remarkably therapeutic. And so this is very similar. Just practice quiet time when you're away from the frenetic activities that can just take us over. When we are grateful for our lives and not striving to get more, or not jealous, or not angry that life didn't treat us well, or we weren't able to get a certain thing that we wanted. When we are grateful, this is associated with all the parameters of our internal selves: pulse, blood pressure, the cortisol, not cortisol, but serotonin, all those good, oxytocin, all of those things that are good, that make us peaceful, are very much present when people practice gratitude. People have gratitude journals. When many of them say, the first thing they think of when they wake up, it's a very good strategy, is not what I'm going to do and what I have to do today. And that's okay. You can do that later. But they first, gratitude, get to an age, you say, I'm glad I woke up, but I'm glad I can get out of bed. But you can be grateful for very mundane things. But the fact is, I think we've all lived enough now to know that not everybody can have the things that we have in the sense of functionality, which is probably most important to us, or peace of mind, or great grandchildren, or a connection, that sort of thing. So those were strategies related to this, but mindful moments. Quiet your chattering mind with mindful moments. I alluded to this a little earlier. Now, you can do this with meditation. Meditation, as I said, maybe a good place to start is to just find a peaceful area. You don't have to put your ankles behind your neck. You can sit in a chair, just be comfortable, and focus on your breathing. And when the thought pops in, think of it as clouds, okay? The thoughts are like clouds. They come into your head, just let them flow right out. Don't judge. Don't say, "Oh, Dr. Landry, I'm sure didn't mean this," and here I am thinking. And no, it's awareness without thought or judgment. And so, but there are other ways to do it other than meditation. Like I said, mindful moments, washing your hands, to smell the soap, to actually smell it, feel the water, hear the water, and that just takes seconds. But the therapeutic value of that, and the ability to get out of a continually strengthening chattering of our minds and the stress that comes with that, it is priceless and so easy to do. If you think I have to meditate, that can put you off. Meditation is great. It's meant for this, and do it if you try it, or do it. Certainly do it if you're doing it. But a mindful moment is just, I get into the car, smell this. A new car is a certain smell. Just smell or feel the silence that's in the car. Just seconds. Being with a pet, really look into the pet's eyes, and wonder what they're thinking. No judgment, just be there. These things take they're every day a mundane thing, and it's just being aware. It is being present wherever you are. Be there. It's being present for those moments. What that does, it shuts down this chattering mind, which is the stimulus for our stress. Now, remember, I'm not saying there aren't stressful situations that we have to address, but remember, fix it, or if you can't fix it now, make a plan to fix it. Walk away, or accept that you cannot change it, and accept it as reality. That flat tire again. You get a flat tire, you could rail against the tire gods. You accept, I have a flat tire and I must deal with it. And that's not a stressful situation. Maybe a little bit if you're out in traffic or something, but you try to get safe and that sort of thing, and therefore you're fixing it. So again, I want you to feel that these strategies are not difficult, that they are within your grasp. But remember Kaizen. We have totally grown up in a world that is very stressful and has become only more so. The amount of information that's out there, social media, the kind of vitriol, the way we're treating each other these days, status of the world, the status of our planet, the status of our families, the status of our finances. These are all potential stressful situations. I'm not trying to, make them not important or not feel that they are important. We must deal with them. But if these are not who we are, they are not our focus, except when we're focused to fix them or to make a plan to fix them. Otherwise, it's accepting them. Just get rid of that backpack that's filled with all of that stress that we bring on ourselves. I don't mean to demean the kind of stress that people on. There's illness, there's sickness, there's in our families and in us, but it's real. It's sort of like a flat tire. It's real, and we accept it and we deal with it in the best way that we can. And if it's a problem, again, we fix it or make a plan. So remember, these are the characteristics. Today I've really hit mindfulness very, very hard, because mindfulness is presence. Mindfulness is observing your thoughts. Mindfulness is meditation. And mindfulness, in my mind, as I have aged and as a physician for over 50 years, mindfulness has become so important to me, probably the number one factor in our health, in being healthy, what we've talked about today, because of the very deleterious effects of stress on us. So let's do this, huh? Let's create a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside. Um, this is all within your purview. Stress is a major factor in reducing our resilience, which, as we've been talking about, is a critical factor in our healthy longevity. So there we go. That's our point of view. Again, it's this 2023 is the how of healthy longevity, and this is a major factor in resilience. We have two more talks. Again, one on mindset and another on emotional intelligence to go. Thank you, Sarah. I'll turn it back over to you and to Kai.
Well, thanks, Dr. Landry. I hope that we have a couple of questions out there, but one thing that has worked really, really well for me, like your flat tire on the car idea, there's nothing you can do about it but get it fixed. And I think some people look at that and get so frustrated with it. And I look at it and say, it's just kind of part of what was supposed to happen today. I guess I was supposed to figure out how to deal with this. I need to get to work. What's the best way to do it? Can I change it myself? Can I call someone for help? And you just immediately go into, it's flat. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do about it except get it fixed. And I work with a lot of different individuals, and I see the difference in the way people handle stress, how many of them just get amped up and just roll with it inside and just bat it around. And I'm like, what decision do you need help making? And they'll tell me, and I'm like, oh, that's really easy. But I guess that's just because we handle stress differently, or I've trained myself to handle stress a little bit differently.
And it's sad to see that too. And when we deal with emotional intelligence and even mindset, the next two, we're going to further light on why people respond the way they do, and again, a way to intervene in that and to be able to not be a victim. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I think knowledge is power, and sometimes we forget that. Like you were talking about, maybe we're going through a personal struggle or a family member is. It's important if it's a stressful situation that you're reaching out to the right people that can help you. Because I think there's also a stigma in our society is you never want to reach out and ask anybody for help. I can handle it on my own.
I think it's going away, Sarah. I think certainly my generation, the middle generation, I think they're a little more likely, and I think the younger ones even more likely. And that's going to be a good thing, I think, to be able to reach out for help when you need it.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we do have a question that just came in. How can we reduce stress in a competitive situation, such as golf or pickleball?
Oh, Lita.
Woo! That's a tough one. But I think the strategies, like you said, focus on your breathing. I think that's key for one of them. Of course, Dr. Roger, I'll let you answer.
I think that's a great answer, and I think we can all have an answer. But the question is, we always ask, when we're trying a new strategy or we have a desire, we don't often enough ask why. Why do you have to win, in golf? Why do you have to be perfect? I mean, do you really think there's perfection on the earth anywhere? And certainly in you. And I'm a golfer. And for me, golf is about this shot. I never get stressed in golf. I used to. It's about this shot. It's not about the hole. It's not about the game for me. Now, if you're focused, say if you bet a lot of money, and well, you're creating a stressful situation. If you bet the money, you better be ready to lose it, and accept that you may lose it, and it's that we all, no matter what it is, we have days when we're particularly adept at something and days where we're not. Does this make you less of a good human being to muff a shot? And I think if you can step back, competition is like many of our chattering thoughts, can take you over. And that sometimes therapists have to go deep with that as to why that is. And sometimes there's, parental problems. If father demanded a lot of it and that sort of thing. And I'm not saying that it's a disease or a mental illness, but it can be. And it's that compelling though. So it's a great question. And I would just say, why? Why is this so important to me? Do you say, because I have to win? Why do you have to win? Keep hitting that why. And I think that observation will put things into perspective for you so that I would love it if you could, I'm not a really serious golfer, and you could tell with that, but, if I'm just in the present moment with this shot, and if it doesn't go well, I'm on to the next shot. and if the hole doesn't go, I'm on to the next hole. If the game doesn't well, I'm on to the next game.
Yeah.
And I have gotten rid of a lot of stress that way.
Yep, I like that. I mean, that truly is kind of bringing it back to mindfulness.
Yes,
you were in it, you did it, and I think we have another question, but before we do, I was just reminded of when you were talking about observing your thoughts and somehow that like stems that negativity. In our household right now, we're talking about assumptions. And I think a lot of times when you came back to that why, why do you need to win? A lot of times it's assumptions of what's going to happen or assumptions of, people are going to think this or that, and who knows. But right now, that's what we're talking about in our family, make those assumptions and how we can step back and say like, no, this is not true. Let's, did we ask someone? Did we have a conversation? So I just wanted to bring that up.
Excellent. I know you got a fifth grader, and what a beautiful environment to be growing up in to deal with those issues. Many of us, my generation in particular, but even before, it was drilled into us. What will the neighbors think if you do it? And that really was a burden because it all kinds of stress was related to that because it was always in our mind. And I think it's important that you have behavior that's consistent with who you are. But that's the most important thing, not what someone else thinks, because especially in this day of social media, we realize you're never going to please everybody. Abraham Lincoln knew that, but we all have to learn it. You're never going to please everybody, so be yourself.
Yeah. And we have another question. How can I help a loved one who suffers from chronic anxiety? She's 37 years old.
I would try some of the more less, none of them are really difficult. See if indeed there's a place where he is less anxious, or she, and maybe that's nature, maybe that's with a pet, maybe that's with music, maybe that's maybe art, maybe try some art, and to just get moments where there's not much. There is no anxiety really usually if you get involved in those tasks, or you really focus where you are. So something small that will bring him into the present moment and shut down his chattering mind. And so any of the things that I did, and this is recorded so that this person can go back and take a look at this and some of the recommendations we made. Many of them are very easy. Some people, cognitive behavior therapy is specifically if it's meant for anyone, it's meant for that disease, and because this can be a crippling thing, chronic anxiety, and it can go very deep as to why people are anxious. But the main thing is to be able to give them relief with some sort of activity or a non-activity that where they're not anxious. And then they will probably automatically seek those times out because it's so comfortable to not be anxious. And so I would start small and see if you make some headway. And again, if this is crippling, then I think you should look for a cognitive behavior therapist, and they're everywhere. This is a very mainstream approach to chronic anxiety.
Thank you. And that's the last question. I know we're right at our time, but Sarah, I'll hand it over to you if you want to add a few words as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great presentation today, Dr. Landry. As always, sometimes we must be reminded or just look after ourselves one more time. So I just want to thank everybody who joined the call today. And as a reminder, the Keynote Speaker Series is brought to you by Blue Star Resort and Golf. And this year we have Dr. Landry and his team on throughout the rest of the year. I think the next one is in October, if I'm correct, Dr. Landry. I want to say the 7th, looking at my calendar. But I certainly appreciate, this is part of our wellness pillars. So we really want to spend time on this because we feel strongly between the Blue Star management team and our Trilogy communities how important it is that we provide a well-rounded opportunity for our members to grow and learn. Like a lot of people, it's social connection is number one, but I think sometimes we have to really think about intellectual enrichment and just being okay spirituality wise, and also thinking about how emotions can play into it. So I really appreciate your time today. And I think we have one more question. Kai, do we have time for that before we wrap it up?
Great. Yes. Yes. We just had a question come in for Gary. Is there such a thing as eustress? Can you embrace stress and use the energy that it generates to accomplish difficult tasks? Does stress have to be negative?
Yeah, well, the concept, yes, absolutely. Calling it stress, though, again, it's a matter of definition, because stress as a survival response with the lion and jumping out from a car, that's one thing. I think what the questioner is alluding to is challenge, self-induced challenge. That the golfer could be doing that, and that is good. It does help us perform better and drives us. It's establishing a goal, but like any goal, we should realize that if we make the goal, that's terrific. If we don't make the goal, and we feel poorly about ourselves, that is not very productive. And so, like any goal, I think we should strive for them. But I think we should also put them in perspective and make them moving targets, so to speak. So yes, challenge yourself, but don't make it who you are in the sense of your value of yourself. And so it can make us better and move us on. But unfortunately, what happens is that when people call it good stress, again, it's a definition. I don't really call that stress. I call that, self-induced challenge. And again, when it can be very, very healthy, but it can also be very destructive.
Yeah, and I like how you said, Roger, too, how, but if you didn't hit that goal, that you're not, going down that path. And how I like to think about it too, can you bring yourself back to that homeostasis, right? That rest and digest, and not keep yourself elevated in that high stress moment.
Good point. Yeah, this shouldn't be everything that's motivating you all day long, because because the fact is you will not reach goals, and you will pay a dear price if indeed a competitive nature or the kind of goals that consume us and that potentially we obsess about. That is not a healthy thing.
Sounds great. Well, I think we're going to sign off, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And again, the recording will be out there next week for all of our members on MTL. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Landry. Thanks, Kai.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
Welcome.
Thank you, Kai.
Bye-bye.